Welcome. Today's lesson should be a very quick and simple lesson on just using a graph, usually of functions, but using graphs of functions to evaluate or solve for values of the output y or the input x given the other. So here's a function that's been graphed. There is no particular equation that represents this function. It's just been represented by the graph. You might be asked to find these values. So in other words, you might be asked to find what is the function's output when the input, because remember, the inside the parentheses right here, this function notation, that's saying the input is -7. What is the output? What is f of -7? Just remember, that's x. So you go along the x-axis. This is the x-axis. I didn't label it, but it is. This is the y-axis. So I go along the x-axis till I find -7, and then I'm going to look up or down until I find where that function exists. So I come up along this line, and I find out I have this value right here that has a x value of -7 and a y value, if I look across over here, a y value of 10. So f of -7 is 10. If I wanted to find f of 10, I come along till I find the 10 value. I look down until I find where that graph crosses. I look across here to find the y value. So f of 10 has a y value of -4. So f of 10 is -4. Now, in general, if these are all functions, an input should only have one output. But let's go the other direction. Let's say that they're looking for an x. They're saying f of x, the output is 5. What is the input? So in other words, they're saying, what does x equal when f of x is 5? Well, then you got to remember, they're not saying x is 5, they're saying y is 5. So I come up here along the y-axis till I get to 5. Then I have to look left and right. So I look across here and I find this point right here has a y value of 5. F of x is 5, has a y value of 5, and an x value of -10. So I know x would be -10. But we can't stop there. There can be multiple x values. There's also another x value. Hopefully most of you noticed it. If I go up here to 5 again, and I go to the right now, I come across this point right here. This point here, and if I look down, that's an x value of 7. So when y again is 5, I could possibly have an x value of 7. So x either equals -10 or +7. It has two possible inputs for this given output. But it doesn't necessarily always have two. For instance, f of x equaling -8. Again, they're saying y, our output is -8. So I come down here to -8. -8's right here. There's nothing to the left that I can see. So I look to the right and I find this point right here. So this point here has a y value of -8. I look up and it has an x value of 13. So I have an x value of 13. So when you are given a graph and asked to evaluate for a given input, you'll find one given output. When you're asked to evaluate for an input given an output, it is possible to have more than one solutions. This lesson should go very easy for you. If you do have questions, please bring them to class.